Hello and welcome. I'm Kate McNair. I'm the Teen Services Coordinating Librarian, and I want to welcome you to the Elementia Issue 17 reception and our first ever virtual reception. I want to begin this evening with an acknowledgement of country. For those of us who are in the Kansas City area, we are standing on the ancestral lands of the Osage and Kaw nations. We pay respect to their elders, past and present, and we invite you to take a moment in considering the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. Elementia is Johnson County Library's teen literary magazine. Since 2005, we've published 17 issues, 1 book, and over 1,000 creative teens, uplifting the voices and art of young people from across the metro and the country and beyond. The library is proud to provide a space and a platform by teens and for teens. As tonight is our first ever virtual reception, I want to let you know a little bit about what to expect. During our readings, the keynote and audience will be muted. We encourage you to keep your cameras on, to share your appreciation for our readers in the chat, or by giving them a heart in your camera. After all readings are complete, we'll break for applause and give you a chance to unmute yourselves where you can truly show your appreciation. If you capture and share a favorite moment of tonight's party on social media, please tag us at joko.elementia on Instagram or Joko Library on Facebook. It is my pleasure now to introduce our Elementia editors and your MCs for this evening's festivities, Emmy McKenzie and Gabby Kill.
For Elementia magazine, and I will be introducing our theme for issue 17. Connection is defined as a relationship between a person, thing, or idea. We wanted our writers and artists to have the opportunity to expand on this definition, because truly, every person experiences the world differently. Our connections and relationships make us who we are. In fact, I'd like to believe it makes the entire world. From the flap of a butterfly's wings to the start of a hurricane, this earth would be nothing without the chain reactions that occur every single day. Even here, sitting on this Zoom call, we all endured different paths to get here, but in the end, each occurrence connected us to be here together. We form friendships and romantic relationships with ourselves and those around us, encouraging the world to turn. Movements against racial discrimination and violence come to mind when thinking about the thousands of people bonded over such important issues. The world would be nothing without the human condition of finding our people and sticking with them. The theme of connection pushed our writers to pause and reflect on our place in the web of this thing we call life, and I am more than impressed with the amazing works we received. I truly believe the pieces presented tonight and in the magazine convey the passion and potential us teenagers have of shaking the world a little bit, causing our own hurricanes. It has been an honor to witness the works of such talented people.
Hi, my name is Gabby Kill, also an editor for Elementia. Thank you, Emmy, that was worded really well. Firstly, above all, I want to thank my fellow editors and designers for the endless hard work that has made Elementia so amazing. Spending hundreds of hours on submittal and InDesign has paid off beautifully, and I couldn't be more proud of our team. If you're here, you've probably received a reception box. I have mine. Since we couldn't have an in-person reception, we wanted to sort of bring the reception to you. These boxes were designed by our lovely library staff, as well as us editors and designers, and are a way of connecting us even though we can't be in the same room. We have all 5 senses covered with our custom loose leaf tees designed by the editors and designers, and we have our lost my place. We have our string lights, which are really cute. The Spotify playlist, which you should definitely listen to if you hadn't before. It's definitely an experience. I know my cat liked the paper worms. They were fun.
Representing the many experiences of this generation. Unfortunately, these experiences aren't always comfortable ones to talk about, but Elementia encourages these conversations because we truly believe they foster change and understanding between communities. We strive to offer a safe space where authors and artists feel they are both seen and heard. Therefore, please be respectful towards each performer and the topics discussed. Keep in mind how much courage and perseverance it takes to share these stories in front of family members, friends, and complete strangers. I have so much respect and admiration for our authors and artists tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce our first reader. Here's Brett Seaton reading his piece, Secrets Scrawled on the Astragal.
It's strung together through the fibers on the back of the lost. Those dreams that leave you sweat-stained and hopeful. How dare we doubt ourselves? In the midst of our mist and making, we think to miss those power lines crackling with your work, your thoughts, your history. You don't get to be. Those power lines crackling with our power lines lie there, carried on the shoulders of giants, straining under the burden of your enjoyment. I make out the swish of your custodian's paintbrush, sweeping beauty into cylindrical corridors, entropy blooming like your happiness. But you cower inside, don't you? Pull your blankets tighter around yourselves, hold those sheets tight. Good luck sleeping at night when the heat's not right. Black sheep are eaten by the wolf. Hit me, hit me, hit me again. We all are just here anyway. Look out for a minute. The world is a monologue. Hot buttons and cold wars. Do we need another stimulant? Look back and tell us where we've been. Take it out into the rawness, not polished till it's flawless, but a song for someone's solace. Sing it till your name stops.
Thank you, Brett. Next, we have Hannah Holiday reading All Things Terribly Lovely.
When you asked me who I thought you were and I didn't have an answer, I was worried. Why does my brain not instantly generate poetry when I think about how beautiful you are? Now that I have an answer, I am terrified. You are not poetry. You are a reality that I never imagined I'd have, and now that I do, I can only turn the essence of you into words. You are a summer thunderstorm, harsh yet rumbly in all the right places. You aren't the little things, you're the big picture. You are hard corners and sharp turns. You are hitting the side of the car and hearing the crack of bones. You are holding a victim of life on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m. You are whiskey bottles on the coffee table in the middle of the afternoon. You are all things terribly lovely. So how is someone like me,
Okay, are you ready to be chased?
little things, the slowing down before stopping, the soft corners, the tears after the cracks, supposed to be made for someone like you? And people wonder why I'm terrified. I love you.
Hallelujah. I will never call Latino papi, sino héroe, soldado, sobreviviente, brother in bondage, sibling in survival. The chains of the Hispanic clink with those of his black cellmate. We languish under the same white gall. Asian men rattle wire fences in 1930s internment camps. White supremacists live on black-tilled land. One day, the Bank of Social Justice will foreclose, repossess, reclaim ownership. Till then, we languish. Like the pain filling up a 4-year-old boy's gaze at the colorful toy store. Niggers not served here. Chinese go home. Jews have no place. Like the swastika carved into the plastic tabletop in my school, filled with kids who cheered when a white supremacist won the highest office in the nation. Like the time I learned my melanin somehow brought down the property value. 3 girls sit in a line on the curb, chins in hand, their various brown-shaded skins sag under the weight of white beauty standards. We tried. We will build a land already watered by the blood of black, brown bodies, by the tears of our great-grandmothers and the screams of our sisters as our bodies swung from the trees and were lost forever in the river. We are bonded in struggle, woven together by oppression. It is a grim unity, and yet we rise in it. We are made bold by it. We fight in spite of progress because the knife driven into our backs has not even been pulled out 6 inches yet. We will move past the red, white, blue, dye our emblem red, yellow, green, black, brown, purple, a heritage to be proud of, one unified in struggle.
Wow, that was beautiful. Last but not least is Amanda Pedley reading Amateur Magicians.
Hello. Somehow, I pull the words out of my mouth like the colorful scarves inside the sleeve of an amateur magician. We are both trying so hard to save our best magic trick to use on ourselves so that everyone can stop asking so much of us. Such constant noise, and one day we will show them how you can spend the day prophesizing yourself into the sky. So that finally there is a wash of shh over the crowd as the clouds clear for constellations to take center stage, and now they are the ones spilling and overflowing with all of their stagnant connections. There is so much to be gained just by looking at them, and the same by looking at us, trying our best, reminding ourselves that even if we don't have all the answers, we will always have an abundance of possible solutions. We are the people that connect the dots and give meaning to nothing, and it's time that I start piecing together the stars that once belonged in my brain. Look up at the aurora borealis. I was never fooling anyone. These colors are exactly what they appear to be.
Thank you to our readers. Those were some really heartfelt words. We will be unmuting everyone's microphone so you can join us in a round of applause.
Thank you. We would like to bring everyone back and ask that you all please stay muted for our next speaker. I would now like to welcome to the stage Yasi to talk about our art submissions.
Thank you, Emmy. Hey everyone, I'm Yasi. I was a member on this year's design team, and I wanted to take a minute to talk about art and specifically the submissions we saw for this issue of Connection. I think it's safe to say that every time we at Elementia decide on a theme, we're very excited to see how artists interpret and incorporate that theme into their work. And every single time, us in the design committee are so pleasantly surprised with the pieces that are submitted to us. As broad a theme Connection was, I'm proud to say that issue 16 was graced with a great variety of visual art that touched on every branch extended from our theme. So I just wanted to acknowledge and thank our incredible young artists for making the magazine what it is. Thank you. We'll take 10 minutes to celebrate the art in this issue and then reconvene for our keynote by Rudy Francisco and the launch of our next theme.
Hello. Okay, it's time to introduce our keynote speaker, Rudy Francisco. The Johnson County Library and elementia staff are honored to dedicate the 17th issue of elementia to Rudy. His work weaves everyday experiences and emotions with the physical world. It reaches into our hearts and it pulls out the parts of humanity that connect all of us. This is true in both the ideas of his poems, which bring together things like volcano jumping and anti-Black racism, as well as musical instruments from weapons tied with toxic masculinity, and the metaphors and the words themselves he uses. For example, there's a line from one of his poems that says, "I turned his nose into a fountain, my fist 5 pennies. I closed my eyes and I made a wish," which is a very short snippet. And I feel bad for cutting the poem up into that because it's a really good poem. It's called The Heart and the Fist on YouTube, and everyone should read and listen to it. Firm belief. Anyways, most days, but especially now, I find myself reflecting on the poems Liberty and Mercy. We live in a space where liberty is often vanishing without explanation, although it is questionable if it was ever truly here in the first place. We live in a world in which police brutality occupies every street corner. None of this is new, but it continues being ever present, even more so because we see it on the internet every single day, if not in our real lives. In times of doubt, I know that I, as well as many of my peers, find his words an acknowledgement and a soothing balm in a world that's constantly on fire. I am so excited and honored and grateful to introduce Rudy Francisco.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Before I say anything, I really want to say thank you to the Johnson County Library and the elementia staff, the readers, the young people, the curators of that magazine. Thank you so much for having me here today. What I want to do today is talk a little bit about my experience, you know, and I'll also read a few poems as well because I feel like that's also the reason why I'm here, right? So people always ask me like how I got started in all of this, and you know, to be honest, I wrote my first poem when I was 17 years old. We were given a homework assignment: write a poem, bring it back, you get full credit, right? So I wrote this poem about this girl that I had a crush on named Rochelle Moss. And I brought it back the next day. Me and my friend Samantha, we get to the class before everybody else does. And she's like, "Hey, let me read your poem." So I give it to her. She reads it. She tells me that it's good. I don't really think anything of it. And then the rest of the class files in. We go through our entire lesson. And then the teacher asks if anybody wants to read their poems out loud before we turn them in, right? So Samantha, she nudges me. She's like, "Hey, you should read your poem," right? And I was like, "No." So say, "Okay, you can do that." So she gets up and she, oh wait, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but you glitched just a moment.
Oh, okay.
Samantha came in and said, or you said something to Samantha and then we missed it.
Okay, so whenever if it glitches again, like Kate, just raise your hand and then that will signify me that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry. So we get into the classroom. Samantha, she's like, "You should read your poem." I said no, went back and forth for a while. Then she's like, "Okay, what if I read it for you?" Right? So I say, "Cool." She gets up and she's like, "Hey class, this is Rudy's poem." And I was like, that's not really what we discussed, right? But she reads it and the whole class clapped, which is crazy because our class hated everything. And the fact that they clapped for me really, really meant something to me, you know? And then afterwards, my teacher, she pulls me aside and she says how much she enjoyed the poem. And before then, like, I didn't really consider myself a writer. I didn't really consider myself a poet, anything like that. And the fact that she sort of encouraged me, and she gave me a list of other, writers to look up. And the following year, I went off to college. And randomly, we had HBO in our dorms. We only had like 5 channels, but HBO was one of them. And I was randomly browsing the channels one day, and I saw this show on HBO called HBO Deaf Poetry. And the first poet I ever saw, his name was Shihan. He did a poem called Love Like, and I fell in love. I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want to do this, right? And after that, like I would watch the show all the time. I started going to open mics around my city. I started hosting an open mic at my university. And I got a chance to meet so many other people who sort of do the same thing that I do. And my next point is for young writers, it's so important to have a community of people, right? I think for me, like when I started going to the open mics and I started going to the poetry competitions, that was when I met so many other people who were also doing the same thing that I did. And the fact that they were so passionate about it, the fact that they were so talented, you know, it made me want to get better and it made me want to keep doing this. And, you know, now, you know, 15 years later or so, I've had the opportunity to be on the Jimmy Fallon show. I tour and I travel all across the country and the world performing poetry. And, you know, I'm published and I'm actually publishing again in December. So I think one of the biggest takeaways for me from my journey is find your community. You know, find people who enjoy what you enjoy, because those are going to be the people that sort of fuel your momentum moving forward. You know, and I want to share a couple poems, and I think I want to do that now, if that's okay, right? So this poem is it's called "The Heart and the Fist," right, which was mentioned earlier by Elizabeth. It's also called "Rifle," and I wrote it because I've been thinking a lot about masculinity. My daughter's 4 years old, and you know, like I'm like the man in her life, you know, and simultaneously me and my father were also reconnecting, because him and I didn't have a good relationship growing up, but now since he's older, I'm older, and you know, we're trying to have a relationship. And I remember we were pulling weeds one time in this garden, and my middle name is Kayam, right? And I had asked him, I was like, so my middle name is Kayam, mom said that you picked it, where did that come from? And he says, I named you after my favorite poet. And then he went back to pulling weeds. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he goes, yeah. When I was in undergrad, I had to read this poem by this guy named Omar Khayyam. And I really enjoyed the poem. So I thought maybe, you know, someday if I ever have a son, I'll give him the middle name Khayyam and maybe he'll become a writer. Yeah, so yeah, with all that said, poem. And the article says, the Mexican government confiscates approximately 30,000 illegal firearms per year. When the guns are taken, they get dismantled and the metal is used to make other types of weapons that will later be utilized by their military. In 2012, Pedro Reyes, an artist from Mexico City, convinced his government to donate the guns to him, and he turned them into musical instruments. So somewhere there's a tambourine, a drum set, a guitar, all made out of things that were used to take people's lives, but now they create a sound that puts life back into people's bodies, which is to say, a weapon will always be a weapon, but we choose how we fight the war. And from this, I learned that even the most destructive instruments can still create a melody worth dancing to, and sometimes don't we also call that a battle? I wonder how long it took to convince the first rifle that it can hold a note instead of a bullet, but still fire into a crowd and make everyone move. When I was 6, I was taught how to throw a punch. In the 80s, that was the anti-bullying movement. The first time one of my classmates took a yo mama joke a little too far, I remembered my training, so I turned his nose into a fountain, my fist 5 pennies. I closed my eyes, I made a wish, I came home with bloody knuckles, and it was the first piece of artwork my family hung on the fridge. I remember staring at my hands the same way you stare at a test when all your answers are correct. What math had become a bunch of dudes afraid of their own feelings, out of any emotion other than anger, constantly yelling at the shadows of the wall, but still haven't realized that we're the ones standing in front of the light. We learn how to dodge a jab. We learn how to step in before we swing. We learn the heart is the same size as the fist, but we keep forgetting they don't have the same functions. We keep telling each other to man up when we don't know what that even means. We turn our boys into bayonets. We point them in the wrong direction. We pull their triggers, and then we ignore all the damage they're doing in the distance. The word repurpose, it means to take an object and give it amnesia. It means to make something forget what it's been trained to do so you can use it for a better reason. I am learning that this body is not a shotgun. I am learning that this body is not a pistol. I am learning that a man is not defined by what he can destroy. I'm learning that a person who only knows how to fight can only communicate in violence, and that shouldn't be anyone's first language. I'm learning the difference between a garden and a graveyard is only what you choose to put in the ground. You see, once I came across a picture of a strange looking violin. The captain said that it was made out of a rifle. I thought to myself, someday that could be me. Thank you. You know, that poem is something that like was super close to my heart, you know, because I know for me, I don't open up to people a lot, right? Like the people who are like close to me in my life, like I don't really, you know, I tend to bottle a lot of things up, you know, and writing, even though I'm not, you know.
You froze for just a moment, Rudy. You were talking about writing.
Okay.
You bottle things up, but writing for you.
Yeah, so I bottle things up often, right? But writing for me has really been that opportunity to let a lot of it out in a very productive way. So after I wrote that poem, I wrote this other poem that isn't available on the internet. Not a lot of people have seen it. So yeah, when we talk about mental health, right, and masculinity, like a lot of times as men, we don't feel comfortable talking about like our struggles and whatnot. And this is really an opportunity for me to say, you know, like I also struggle with a lot of things mentally, and I'm working through it, and it's not a process that I should be afraid of. It's not something that I should hide from people. So here we go. During the winter of 2015, the residents of Hampton Bay, Long Island woke up to what they say was the worst smell they had ever experienced. Mysteriously overnight, 1,000 fish had died in the canal. After thorough analysis, they found that the oxygen levels in the water were too low and all the fish had drowned. Upon hearing the news, many had questions like, how does a fish drown? Don't they have gills? Don't they have a fin and a tail? They said things like, aren't they built to survive in that environment? And perhaps this is the best analogy for my depression, this angry deity, this jealous God, this thirsty shadow that wrings my joy like a dish rag, turns every conversation into a conveyor belt that always begins with the phrase, you look tired today. To be honest, getting out of bed has become a magic trick, and I'm probably the worst magician I know. The sadness is the only clean shirt I have left in my washing machine. Has been broken for months. When people ask me how I'm doing, I want to say my daughter's 4 years old and I'm still not sure if I'm a good father. I want to say that my dad has been diagnosed with dementia. There might be a day when I walk in the room and he doesn't recognize me, and I've always wanted us to start all over, but I guess you got to be careful about what you ask for. I guess when you pray for something, you have to be a little more specific. I want to say that crickets have been known to eat their own wings, and I too have a tendency to destroy what helps me get off the ground. I really want to say that I'm kind of messed up right now, but that's not a polite answer. So instead I pretend it's Halloween, I jack-o'-lantern my face into something acceptable, and I tell others I'm fine until it sounds like the truth. But sometimes there's a help me chain to the ankle of it, I'm doing okay. Sometimes I'm fine is the quickest way to say I don't want to talk about it. Sometimes all the oxygen in the room becomes water. I feel like I'm sinking to the bottom, like I'm running out of air, but I made a promise to myself that I won't be another drowning fish. I told myself that I will not die in this canal. I heard that if you just take a deep breath and relax, the human body will naturally float on top of the water. So I breathe and I tell myself that it's gonna be okay. I cry, but I tell myself that it's gonna be okay because I know there's a better version of me somewhere in the future. He is staring at this moment right here and he is saying, Rudy, thank you for not giving up on us. See, a few days ago while I was reading, I saw a run-on sentence and I thought, you know, it could have just ended right there. But it found a reason to keep going. I smiled and I said, you know, same. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm gonna read one more poem, and I think that'll sort of like bring me to my time. You know, once again, thank you so much for having me today. You know, like writing has just been, it's just been this really amazing journey that I didn't see coming at all. You know, while I was in graduate school, like I was, you know, in grad school for psychology, and you know, poetry was just something that I was doing sort of like on the back burner, you know, and poetry really sort of like took off for me, and it was something that I poured so much of my time into, and yeah, and fortunately, you know, I've had the opportunity to do so many things, and you know, now it's my full-time occupation. You know, I went from being a statistical analyst, you know, which is not like poetry at all. I went from being an analyst to, you know, being a full-time poet. And while I was an analyst and waking up and crunching numbers every day, I woke up every day and I was miserable about going to work, you know. But now, you know, that I do something that I love, like even, you know, some days I have to be up at like 4, 5 o'clock in the morning to catch an early flight, and I wake up and I'm energized and I'm ready to go because I know I get to go and do something that I love, you know. And there's nothing else like that. And I know sometimes, you know, we want to do what's going to make us money. Like we want to do, you know, what we want, like these very prestigious, you know, jobs so that we can say, hey, this is what I do, and have people be impressed by it, you know. But I think what's more important is your own happiness. And I think we have to prioritize, I think we have to prioritize that, you know. And yeah, like I wake up every day and I'm like, wow, like somebody's going to pay me to read poems. Like how wild is that, you know? Like I still don't even believe it, you know? So yeah, I'm gonna read one more poem, and that's going to bring me to my time. I don't want to go over time because I want to make sure that we're respectful of the entire schedule for today, right? So my friend Richard, he hates poetry, but he supports me. Right? One day he was like, "Hey, I want you to write something that's just about you, and that's about yourself." So I thought about it, and this is what I came up with. I was born on July 27th. That makes me a Leo. I don't know what that means. I'm 5'6.5". I weigh 175 pounds. I don't know how to swim, and I'm a sucker for a girl with a nice smile and clean sneakers. I'm still learning how to whisper. I'm often loud in places where I should be quiet. I'm often quiet in places where I should be loud. I was born feet first, and I've been backwards ever since. I like ginger ale a lot. I've been told that I give really bad hugs. People say that it feels like I'm trying to escape. Sometimes it's because I am. Secretly, I get really nervous every time someone gets close enough to hear me breathe. I have this odd fascination with things like sandcastles and ice sculptures. I assume it's because I usually find myself dedicating time to things that will only last a few moments. I guess that's also why I tend to fall in love with people who will never think it's that way. Relationships often remind me that I'm not afraid of heights or falling, but I'm scared of what's going to happen the moment that my body hits the ground. I'm clumsy. Yesterday, I tripped over my self-esteem. I landed on my pride, and it shattered like an iPhone with a broken face. Now, I can't even tell who's trying to give me a compliment. I've never been in the military, but I have this Purple Heart. I got it from beating myself up over things I can't fix. I know this sounds weird, but sometimes I wonder what my bed sheets say about me when I'm not around. I wonder what the curtains would do if they found out about all the things I've done behind their backs. I've got a hamper that's overflowing with really, really loud mistakes and a graveyard in my closet. I'm afraid that if I let you see my skeletons, you'll grind my bones into powder and get high on my fault lines. Hi, my name is Rudy. I enjoy frozen yogurt, people watching, and laughing for absolutely no reason at all. But I don't allow myself to cry as often as I need to. I have solar powered confidence. I have a battery operated smile. My hobbies include editing my life story, hiding behind metaphors, and trying to convince my shadow that I'm someone worth following. I don't know much, but I do know this. I know that heaven is full of music. I know that God listens to my heartbeat on his iPod. It reminds him that but we still got work to do. So thank you so much for having me today. It's been my absolute honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy, for your keynote speech. That was beautiful. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing your poetry with us. I'm so glad this issue was dedicated to you. Let's take a minute to applaud.
Rudy.
Thank you again, Rudy Francisco, for an amazing presentation. We all value your work and time and appreciate you being here. Now I would like to welcome Jillian Knabel to the stage to announce something we have all been looking forward to, next year's elementia theme.
Hi guys, I have no idea how I'm supposed to follow up Rudy, but my name is Jillian Knabel. Although our lives have flipped upside down during this unprecedented time, I'm honored to announce on behalf of the entire elementia team, our 18th issue theme will be bodies. We all have one, use one, and interact with humans and animals every day. How do you use your body? Do you have any tattoos? Describe a lover or an alien species. Bodies of stars or water. Compare, contrast, and connect with yourself and others as you journey into this next issue. Now, please take a look at the chat where one of our hosts will drop a link to submit for next year's issue. You can also find this on the library website under elementia. Most exciting, our next issue will be dedicated to Franny Choi. Author of 3 books, she beautifully touches on sensitive topics such as social activism, equality, sexuality, and human and non-human bodies. We are honored and excited to have her speak next year. To inspire us and turn our minds to new writing, we have a piece for the theme of bodies. Please welcome to the virtual stage, Olivia Williams.
Thank you so much. I just want to say before reading, I am really honored to get to open up this theme. I actually have been involved with elementia since my junior year of high school, and now I'm going into my junior year of college. So this is just super exciting and wonderful. Rudy has like changed my life in 15 minutes and I'm gonna have to like go and get myself together after this, but I'm super honored. This is called Where Sweat Accumulated. Crest of my shoulder, fold of my thigh. My right collarbone is stickier than my left. Heather gray shirt glommed to the small of my back. The armpits, always the armpits. Advertising to all, heat was here. Center forehead, smack dab. You could graph the point. 2 steps below my hairline, 3 paces above my eyebrows. Dead center to my nose. And speaking of below my nose, septum, pulled into by my nostrils, right, mostly. The left ankle damper than the right. Behind the knee, believe it or not, an oily pool gathers. Yet when I've sat, skin dried in the climate-controlled air, I raise my arms as one final test. The upper chest, just below my neck, feels the coldest.
The end of an elemental reception. Oh man, you guys got me. So as we all know, all of us editors have talked about like how elementia gives you the feels, and it's really hard to like end a reception without crying just like a little bit. This one in particular for me, just because it's been such a crazy summer, right? We had no idea if we'd be able to release this magazine and have a reception. So thank you guys. Thank you for making this evening amazing. So, okay, so with that gratitude for all of you, thank you for coming, thank you for sharing, thank you for listening and bearing witness. I want to thank the partners that also make elementia possible. The Johnson County Arts Council supports elementia and creative teens in our community through the Shooting Stars Scholarship, and the CPS Foundation, which helped to support Rudy Francisco's appearance at tonight's event. You too can support elementia through our foundation. One of our hosts is going to drop a link in the chat that you can make donations at. Again, I want to thank all of our readers, our editors, our designers. Rudy, thank you so much. And so now with this very emotional goodbye, I want to encourage everybody to stick around. You can share love in the chat, and you can stick around until the end of the program. So thank you guys so much for coming. We are so great to have you here. For one last time, can we unmute our microphones and can we give everybody a big round of applause?
Yay, Kate!
Oh my God!
Love you so much.
We love you, Kate!
Love you, Kate.
All right, everybody feel free to stick around and chat. I'm going to turn on some music and just enjoy yourselves. Have a wonderful weekend.